All right, welcome. Today, we're taking a deep dive into some of the biggest health battles we face. But these aren't your typical invaders from the outside. We're talking about threats that actually start from within our own bodies or hijack our own systems in some pretty wild ways.
We spend so much time worrying about germs and viruses from the outside world. But what happens when the real fight is happening inside us? When the battle lines are drawn within our own cells, our immune system, or even our brain's reward system? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today, looking at cancer, AIDS, and addiction.
So first up, cancer. We tend to talk about it like it's some kind of foreign invader, right? But the truth is, it's a lot more personal than that. Cancer is basically a rebellion, a civil war that's started by our very own cells.
To really get what's happening, you have to know the rules of a healthy body. And one of the biggest rules is something called contact inhibition. Just think of it like basic, polite cellular etiquette. When healthy cells are growing and they bump up against their neighbors, they just stop. They get the message. It's the body's built-in stop sign to prevent things from getting overcrowded.
And this is where that civil war kicks off. A normal cell, it plays by the rules. It respects the stop signs. But a cancer cell, it's a complete outlaw. It totally ignores those stop signals from its neighbors and just keeps dividing and dividing and dividing. That's how you get this chaotic, uncontrolled growth.
Now, that uncontrolled growth is bad enough on its own. But what makes cancer truly dangerous, what makes it so lethal, is this one word: metastasis. This is the game changer. It's when those rebellious cells break off from the original spot, jump into the bloodstream, and start setting up new colonies all over the body. It's how a local problem becomes a body-wide crisis.
So, what starts this whole rebellion in the first place? Well, we call the triggers carcinogens. These are things that can damage a cell's DNA and push it over to the dark side. And they come in a few different flavors. You've got physical agents, like X-rays or UV rays from the sun. Then there are chemical ones, like the stuff in tobacco smoke. And there are even biological agents, like certain types of viruses.
Okay, so we've talked about a cellular rebellion. Now we're going to shift gears to something different. A full-blown systemic sabotage. Let's talk about AIDS. With this one, the threat does start from the outside, with the HIV virus. But its strategy is genius and terrifying. It turns our body's own defense system against itself.
And right off the bat, it's super important to get this distinction straight. HIV is the virus. AIDS is the condition that virus causes. AIDS isn't one single disease. It's a whole collection of symptoms and infections that can happen once HIV has completely torn down your body's ability to fight anything off.
So how does it pull off this sabotage? Well, HIV is what's known as a retrovirus. This is its secret weapon. Most living things have DNA, but HIV carries its instructions as RNA, and it brings its own special tool, an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. This tool lets it do something incredible. It actually rewrites its own code directly into our cell's DNA. It's the ultimate biological hack, turning our own cells into virus-making factories.
And look at how strategic it is. HIV doesn't just attack any old cell, it goes straight for the top, the helper T cells. These are the commanders of our immune system. It gets inside, hijacks the T cell's machinery to make more copies of itself, and then, as the new viruses burst out, they destroy the host cell. You take out the commanders, and the whole immune army just collapses.
And what makes this so incredibly dangerous is the timeline. It's a silent attack. There can be a gap of 5 to 10 years, sometimes even longer, between when someone is first infected with HIV and when the really severe symptoms of AIDS show up. For all those years, the immune system is being quietly dismantled from the inside out.
Of course, understanding this virus also means knowing exactly how it spreads, and just as importantly, how it doesn't. HIV is not transmitted through casual contact like hugging or shaking hands. Transmission only happens through the exchange of specific body fluids, and these are the primary ways that can happen.
All right, for our final threat, we're moving to a new battlefield. We've seen our cells rebel and our immune system get sabotaged. Now the target is the brain itself, specifically its fundamental reward pathways. This is about the neurological hijacking that happens with drug abuse.
And there are a lot of ways this hijacking can happen. You've got opioids like heroin, which come from the poppy plant and act as powerful depressants, slowing everything down. Then you've got cannabinoids from cannabis, which have their own unique effects on the cardiovascular and nervous systems. And then you have coca alkaloids like cocaine. These are powerful stimulants that directly mess with your brain's neurotransmitters, like dopamine, to create this incredibly intense, but totally artificial feeling of pleasure.
Now, this brings us to two words that people use interchangeably, but they're actually very different: addiction and dependence. Think of it this way. Addiction is psychological. It's the want. It's that intense craving for the drug's effect, that compulsive drive to use it again and again. Dependence, on the other hand, is physical. It's the need. It's when your body has literally rewired itself to expect the drug to function, and it goes haywire if it doesn't get it.
And that physical backlash has a name: withdrawal syndrome. This is what happens when someone is physically dependent on a drug and they suddenly stop. It's the body basically screaming for a substance it now needs to feel normal. The symptoms can be absolutely brutal: anxiety, shaking, nausea, sweating, and it's this physical agony that makes it so incredibly hard for people to quit.
So, wow! We've looked at three very different kinds of internal siege, right? A cellular rebellion, a systemic sabotage, and a neurological hijacking. But across all the source materials, one thing is crystal clear. Our single best defense against all of them is the same. It's knowledge. It's prevention.
So what can we actually do about it? Well, here's our toolkit. It all comes down to being informed. Whether it's understanding the real risks of carcinogens like tobacco, making sure to practice safe sex to prevent HIV transmission, or getting educated on the real dangers of drug abuse. Awareness is always, always the first and most powerful line of defense. These are things we can all do to protect ourselves and the people we care about. At the end of the day, understanding how our own bodies can be turned against us isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to empower you. When we recognize these vulnerabilities in our cells, in our immune system, in our brains, we arm ourselves to make smarter choices. That knowledge, that's our shield. So the real question is, how are we going to use it?